Good morning, my quilty friends. Today I'm going to show you how I'm making very simple book covers. We're making them in Monday class at the moment. I'm going to start off showing you this patchwork one, and later I'll show you what I'm calling a whole cloth one. So to make the patchwork one, you need something to bond the patchwork squares onto. I'm using a violin, the light violin, and it's the iron-on violin. And firstly, you need to measure your book. So I've got a book, any book, whatever size book you want to cover. And the measurement you need to take is from one side of the book all the way around to the other, and add about 2.5 inches onto that total. And then take the length of the book and add 2.5 onto that. So for this book, the book was 9 3/4 around by 6.5, so I've cut a piece about 12 by 9 of the iron-on violin. Just overcut it. So now we're ready to start putting our squares on. I've cut 1.5 inch squares in 3 different fabrics. You can cut whatever size you want. You can use 2 fabrics for whatever you fancy, but we're starting off with these 3. So we start laying some of them down. Okay, so I put the first 6 down, I think, in orange, and you're just placing them down. Then I've got a little piece of, it's like a fine greaseproof paper I'm using, put over the top. Okay, and then I'm going to use the iron for about 10 seconds on it to press it. Now you don't want your iron to be going on to the glue part of your violin, so try and keep it just on your squares, move it round. It does take about 10 seconds. Okay. And then you can take the greaseproof paper off. Managed to catch a little bit on the edge. Okay. And you continue then adding your squares and ironing them on. So knot it a little bit further on. Okay. And here you can see I've covered my piece of violin. Now you can probably see there's little gaps here and there, but don't worry about those because we're going to cover those with stitching. Right, once you've got the piece covered with your little squares, you take a piece of foil. I've got a white piece, but you can use colours if you like, and lay it on top and cut it out so that it's a bit bigger than the piece. This one I made earlier. And I usually put 3 or 4 pins in and start stitching down the lines with the fancy stitches on your sewing machine. Okay, that's in a plain green. This one I used a variegated thread for. And starting in the middle, you cover your piece with the fancy stitching. Now, if we go back to the plain book cover, or the whole cloth one I'm calling it, there's a piece of fabric I've been playing with. If you've got a piece you don't want to cut up or a piece that's very nice, you can just make a cover out of that piece of fabric. You don't need the violin really on the back then, so I would use a piece of calico, place that underneath your piece of fabric that you've measured and cut, and then I can show you the difference. If we used the white, that would give it a nice sheen. Okay, they have a piece of orange here that's actually got a sun in it almost, and that mutes all the colours and makes it look like a, there we are, a sunset scene. And then I just stitched fancy stitches crossways on that one. Okay, I think that's enough for this week. Next week we'll get on and actually make the cover up.